Ferrari just ran a secret engine test, and what Fred Vasseur revealed about it changes everything you thought you knew. Because this is not about making the car faster. It is about fixing the exact moment Ferrari loses every race. We are talking about a hidden deficit of around 25 horsepower, combined with an energy system that collapses at the worst possible time. But here is the shocking part. Ferrari is not trying to match Mercedes anymore. They are trying to outsmart them. A completely new engine behavior. A system that decides before the lap even begins exactly when the car will be fast. And if this works, Ferrari does not just close the gap. They change how races are won. Because this is not a normal upgrade. This is a complete reset of how power is used in Formula One. Stay with me, because what Ferrari is really testing in secret could flip this entire championship overnight. Subscribe now, because this is where everything changes. At first, Ferrari did not think they needed a secret engine test, because on the surface, everything looked right. The car was fast, genuinely fast. In corners, it could match Mercedes. In traction zones, it was sometimes even better. In the opening laps, it looked like the best car on track. And that is what made the problem so dangerous. Because it was hidden. Not obvious. Not constant. But always there. Because every race followed the same pattern. Ferrari would start strong. Push hard. Take positions. Control the early phase. And then, without warning, the performance would drop. Not everywhere. Not all at once. But in the exact places where races are decided. At the end of long straights. Right before an overtake. Right when defending becomes critical. And that is where Vasseur's revelation becomes crucial. Because this is not about lacking performance. It is about losing it at the worst possible time. And once Ferrari understood that, everything changed. Because suddenly, the question was no longer, how do we make the engine more powerful? It became, how do we stop losing power when it matters most? And that is a completely different challenge. Because adding horsepower is one thing. Controlling when that horsepower exists is something else entirely. But this is where the story takes a deeper turn. Because when Ferrari looked into the data, they found something even more concerning. The issue was not just deployment, it was recovery. They were harvesting less energy than Mercedes under braking, arriving at the end of straights with less electrical power available, forcing the system into recovery mode earlier. And once that happens, everything unravels, because the car is no longer racing at full performance, is managing survival. And Hamilton feels that more than anyone, because he goes from attacking to defending, from pushing to protecting, from controlling the race to reacting to it. And that shift is what has been costing Ferrari everything. But here is where the secret test becomes critical. Because Ferrari is not just trying to increase energy. They are trying to redesign how it flows through the entire lap. How it is generated, how it is stored, how it is deployed, and most importantly, when. Because timing is the real advantage Mercedes has. Not just power, but precision. The ability to arrive at the exact moment of maximum demand, with maximum energy available. And that is what Ferrari is trying to replicate. But not copy. Improve. Because this new system is not reactive. It does not wait for the battery to drop. It predicts the entire lap in advance. Using data, track position, temperature, grip evolution, everything. To decide exactly where the car must be fast and where it can afford not to be. And that creates something completely different. A car that is not fast everywhere, but unbeatable in specific moments. And that is where races are decided. But this is also where the risk begins. Because this level of precision leaves no room for error. If the prediction is wrong, if the timing is off, if the energy is used too early or saved too long, the advantage disappears instantly. And in Formula One, that is enough. Enough to lose positions, enough to lose races, enough to lose championships. But this is where Ferrari is making their biggest bet, because they are not playing safe. They are not making small adjustments. They are changing the entire philosophy of how their engine works. And that is why this test is secret, because this is not just an upgrade. It is a transformation, one that could either bring them back to the front, or expose that the gap to Mercedes is deeper than they thought. And now, everything leads to one unavoidable moment. The first race where this system is fully unleashed, where the SF26 either stops fading or continues the same pattern. Because if the power is finally there, at the exact moment Hamilton needs it, then everything we have seen so far changes meaning. It It was never a lack of pace. It was a lack of control. But if it is not, if the same weakness appears again, then Vasseur's revelation becomes something much more serious. Not a diagnosis, but a confirmation. That Ferrari has been chasing a solution to a problem that goes deeper than they expected. Because now the situation is no longer just technical. It is strategic. And that is where everything becomes dangerous. Because once Ferrari understands exactly when they are losing performance, they can start building the race around it. Not reacting, not adapting, designing the race itself. And that is something they have not been able to do all season. Until now. Because before, Ferrari was always one step behind, managing the drop, trying to defend the inevitable, knowing that at some point, the power would disappear. And when you know that, you never fully commit. You never take the maximum risk. You never push beyond the limit, because you are always thinking about what comes next. But if that changes, if the car stops losing power at those critical moments, then something shifts instantly. Hamilton stops calculating and starts attacking. And when Hamilton attacks, the entire race changes shape. But here is where the story becomes even more intense, because this is not just about Ferrari fixing their weakness. It is about removing Mercedes' biggest advantage. Because right now, Mercedes does not just have more power. They have control over the race flow. They decide when to push, when to defend, when to overtake, because they know their performance is consistent, reliable, predictable, and that allows them to dominate strategically. But if Ferrari removes their own weakness, that balance disappears. Because now, Mercedes can no longer wait for Ferrari to fade. They can no longer rely on that moment. They are forced to fight directly, and that is where everything becomes uncertain. Because now is no longer a controlled race, is a real battle. But this is where the risk becomes even more critical, because Ferrari is not just removing a weakness. They are replacing it with complexity, a system that depends on prediction, on timing, on precision, and that introduces a new kind of pressure. Because now, the driver is not just managing the car, he is trusting the system, trusting that the power will be there, trusting that the algorithm made the right decision. And that is not something you can see. You can only feel it through the throttle, through the response of the car, through the confidence it gives you. And that is where everything depends on Hamilton. Because if he trusts it fully, then Ferrari unlocks something special. But if he hesitates, even slightly, then the entire system loses its edge. Because hesitation, at this level, is the difference between winning and losing. But this is where the final layer begins to reveal itself. Because what Ferrari is doing right now is not just about this season, it is about the future. Because if this system works, if predictive energy management becomes the key to performance, then every team will have to follow. Not immediately, not easily, but eventually. Because this is not a component. It is a concept, a new way of understanding power in Formula One. And those changes do not just affect one race, they redefine the sport. But here is the question that everything now builds toward. Because innovation in Formula One always comes with a cost. And that cost is uncertainty. Because when you push beyond what is proven, you enter a space where outcomes are no longer guaranteed, where performance can swing, where results can surprise you. And Ferrari is stepping directly into that space. So now everything comes down to one moment. Not development, not testing, not theory, reality. The first race where this system is fully exposed, where the SF26 either behaves like a completely different car, or reveals that the problem was never fully solved. Because if it works, then this becomes the moment Ferrari comes back. Not gradually, instantly, but if it does not, then this becomes something else entirely. The moment they realize they were trying to control something that cannot be fully controlled. And the real question is, when that moment arrives, will Ferrari finally dictate the race? Or will they discover that even with all this innovation, Mercedes is still one step ahead? And this is where everything finally reaches its breaking point. Because there is a moment in every season where you stop asking what a team is trying to do and start seeing what they are actually capable of. And for Ferrari, that moment is now. Because everything they have built, everything Vasseur hinted at, everything hidden inside that secret engine test, leads to one simple truth. There are no more variables left to hide behind. No more unknowns. No more we are still learning. Because this is the solution. This is the direction. This is the version of Ferrari that is supposed to fight back. But here is where the pressure becomes absolute. Because when you redesign how your engine works, when you change how energy is delivered, when you build everything around precision and timing, you are no longer chasing performance. You are committing to a belief that this is the right way to win. And if that belief is wrong, everything collapses. Not slowly, instantly, but if it is right, then everything unlocks. Because suddenly, the car stops having weak moments, stops fading, stops giving away positions, and instead, it becomes something much more dangerous, consistent, unpredictable, controlled. A car that does not just respond to the race, but shapes it. But this is where the final tension reaches its peak. Because Ferrari is not alone in this moment. Mercedes is there, watching, analyzing, ready, because they know exactly what is at stake. They know Ferrari has changed something fundamental. And they also know that if Ferrari gets it right, their advantage disappears. Not gradually, but immediately. So this is no longer just about improvement. This is about confrontation. Two philosophies, two systems, two ways of winning, meeting at the exact same point, and only one of them will hold. But here is the final layer, the one everything has been building toward. Because in Formula One, the difference between a breakthrough and a failure is often invisible. It is not seconds. It is not even tenths. It is moments. One straight, one braking zone, one decision. And that is exactly what Ferrari is trying to control. Moments. But controlling moments means you cannot afford to miss them. Not once. Because if the power is not there, at that exact second, everything is lost. And that is the risk they are taking. Total control or total exposure. So now everything comes down to the only thing that matters. When the decisive moment arrives, when Hamilton goes for the move, when the race is on the line, will Ferrari have the power exactly when it is needed? Or will they realize they built a system that was almost perfect, but not perfect enough? Because in the end, this is not just about an engine. It is about whether Ferrari finally understood the problem, or whether they have been chasing the right idea in the wrong way.